everyone, welcome and thanks for joining us today. So my name is Simone, I'm Community Manager at Oxford Dictionaries and I'll be hosting the session today. I'm here with Hudson and Silvia, his interpreter. So now, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Hudson so he can begin his presentation. Hudson, here you go.
Hello, my name is Hudson Asiema. This is my sign name. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company known as eLimu Plus. So today I'm going to present on what? eLimu, developing an app in sign language with Oxford Dictionaries API. So you can follow me on the following social media pages at eLimu Plus. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So today's presentation, what would I talk about? The first thing is introduction to eLimu, and I'll show you 2 demos. And the second thing I'll talk about is my technical journey of the project. I'll explain about my background, my first award, how the participation challenges that I've faced, and also the eLimu bot. The final thing I'll talk about is the things I wish I knew before I won the grants. So for now, I want to show you a demo on the eLimu, and I'll explain briefly on what it is. So this app, it chooses, what it does is that it has the videos of the word, and then you can get information on sexual related topics. As you can see, once you open up the app, it will give you the topics. So you can flip through and choose the topics, and it'll give you sexual reproductive health topics on different things, about AIDS, about all those things. And at the end, you'll be able to see the dictionary. These are the words that are used in sexual reproductive health terms, like abortion. If you want to know what that word means, you'll see a small icon that you press it, and you'll see it gives you the meaning of what abortion means. And then also you can click on AIDS. That's how you sign the word AIDS, and the video shows you how to sign it, AIDS. And then the icon again, explain what AIDS, what does it mean? It explains there below. So you can really select something else, maybe like cesarean section. That's how you sign it. So if you need to understand what that word means, again, press on the icon, and there it's all in English that explain what it means. So that's how the app works. And you can also see another word, how do you sign circumcision? So, and then again, the explanation from the dictionary. So that's how the app works. It has the sexual reproductive health topics and the dictionary. And where did I get this dictionary from? Oxford API. Next, the other demo that I want to show you. This demo is on what? Sign language dictionary bot. This is available through Facebook Messenger. What you do, you ask a word, how you sign a word. Let's see, play. So on Facebook Messenger, at SL Dictionary, That's where you find it. And then what you do is that you click on the bot, and maybe you can send a message like hello. So you send a message, sign hello, and then the message will come back to you, and it will give you 3 options: how to sign it, what it means, and how to browse the dictionary. So those are the 3 options that will be available to you. So you'll see how to sign hello. What does hello mean? And then there's a pop-up that gives you the explanation. And then the 3rd option is if you need to browse the dictionary. So once you send that message for hello, that's what will come back to you. So also at the very bottom, you can do the browser, and the pop-up will come up and will give you that, just as the demo is showing, give you the different explanations. And at the very far end, there's a small icon. If you link on it, it will show you the meaning of the words again, the definition. So now it's explaining how you can see the browsing the dictionary. You're seeing hello, the video, and then again click on hello, the word, and it gives you the pop-up that you're seeing below. Like for example, if you say brother, click on it, and then it explains again what it means. So it always sends a video, and then, like I said, it's available on Facebook Messenger. Now I'd like to talk about my technical journey of my project, how I've started until now that I have the eLimu app. I'll explain it, the challenges, the experiences, and I'll start off with my background. My primary education was here in Kenya. But in high school, I didn't complete my high school. I went only halfway, and I decided if I stayed until the end, which is usually 4 years, or go to America. So I really debated on it, and I decided to go to America to further my studies. So I went to a college in America where they had a program for the deaf, and the other deaf students were there. But I was only deaf student from Africa. So they were teaching us about maths and English courses. After that class, it was, getting the statistics, it wasn't easy, like mathematics. How do people get 100%, So I was telling them that, based from my education experience in Africa, we always learn English and maths as well. So that helped me to really relate well in college studies. So I used to really see how the college the studies, I really fared well in it. And also I was advising other students on how to continue with an advanced class. And when they gave me an exam, they asked me whether I want to use, the technical writing or write. And when I did that, using the system that they had, I was able to pass. And they saw that I was very good at the maths. And so they said that you shouldn't be with the deaf students. You need to be elevated and join the hearing class. Because, my experience, in Kenya, and then now I've moved to America, and I was trying to understand how will I be integrated in a hearing class, and I'm the only deaf person. So they said that you shouldn't worry because you'll have the interpreter there to facilitate the communication with the lecturer. And I said, that's fine. So I went and joined a hearing class, and the maths teacher will talk, and the interpreter wanted to find out who's the deaf person, and I said, it's myself. And so we started working together with the interpreter and the lecturer. And they made sure that if I do not understand anything, I'll raise my hand up and ask, or we go to the office for 1 hour and discuss with the lecturer for me to understand things clearer. So after the exams, I passed. And then my first language that I learned in programming is C++. Again, I was the only deaf student in a hearing class. And this language, C++, is usually the basic, like how to code. And I was really interested in learning the other languages where I could code different things. So from there, I finished that programming, and then I transferred to university. And I continued with my computer science studies. Also there, they had a deaf program. Those interpretation services offered. But the class I joined, I was the only deaf person in the midst of all these hearing students. But the interpreter was there during my computer science studies. So I was learning all these new languages for coding. So I did learn earlier, like I had said, the C++, but when I transferred, I had to start learning Java language. And the comparison, I prefer Java language than C++, and I continue to learn how to write the code. And my team for the project in class, we were grouped in different teams for discussions, and we had to come up with a project. So we sat in my group, and we had to come up with a project, a specific project until the graduation. Also, they gave us homework, that focuses on English development. So that was our project, and we needed to know the requirements, what technicalities are involved. And this project, my project team, the lecturer himself had given us all the topics, but in the final project, before initially, all of us were given the different topics, but in your final project, you had to choose your project name. So we sat down with my team, project team, and thought of what to do. And I looked at around the world how all resources are available for the hearing community, but for the deaf or even for the disability in general, there is nothing. So I came back to my project team and I explained, when you're looking at Google, when you're searching for something through Google, it gives you the words. For the hearing, it's fine. But why not let's do something for the deaf, where the deaf can also be included. And since I've always been working with an interpreter, the interpreter was able to explain my idea to the project team, and they're very happy with that. And that's what we did. So I said, why not have ASL Google? ASL means American Sign Language. And the lecturer was like, wow, okay, that's nice. If that's your project name, then I approve. So my project team, we said, meeting, discussing, which language will we choose to use? Which technical things will we need? How do we do the videos? Where will they be saved or kept, stored? But we finalized on everything, and it was very successful. And it worked well using the web. And my class, we did the presentation. And who presented it? Myself. And the lecturer was there, and all the students, and they were commending, and we passed. That was our final project, and we passed with flying colors. And I graduated, and everything was done. I added 2 more months after my graduation in America. I was looking for a job, and because I did not find a job, I decided, you know what, let me come back to Kenya. So what I did, also in those 3 months, I was searching for a job before I came back to Kenya. And then I saw ICT authority were having an initiative program for a grant. And I said, why not? So I applied. And this was KSL, Kenyan Sign Language, which means Kenya Sign Language. Because I know in Africa, we don't have anything online for sign language. So I came back to Kenya to develop, because at least in America, that was my experience on how to do coding for American Sign Language. So I came back home, and then I waited for them to announce who won the grant after the application. And when they announced, I looked at the computer and I read, it was only company name that has won. And I had applied as an individual. So I said, okay, fine. So my name is not there. So what I did is I still continued developing the app, web developing at home. I still continued that on and on until for 1 year. And then I found a job as well here in Kenya. Also, there was another second cycle that was open at the same place. And this time I applied. So before I applied as an individual, so what I did is I applied as a company, but using the same idea on KSL, which is Kenyan Sign Language. So the board sat panel was there, and they were shocked when they were doing the interview process. When I came there, they said, "You're deaf, yes. Who developed this app?" And I said, "Me." "Which language did you use?" And I explained everything, and I answered all their questions. Again, what happened is, during the afternoon session, it was the individual interviews. So again, I came back. So the morning session was for the company and the team. And again, in the afternoon, I went back in the individuals, and the board again were really surprised. And then when they announced their, who won the grants, I had won both in the individual and the company category. So the company won a bigger grant, and as an individual, the grant was a bit smaller. So I started developing the web app as an individual and through the company, and I finished everything. Everything was good. So as you can see, that diagram below on my slide, that was my first development. But later, I didn't know how to use on the Android. Never, just use the web app. So I had to research how to do that, because in Africa, we got later the Android phones. So I had to research, like, how do I merge my skill sets with Java so that people can also access the app on their Android phones. So that's how I started developing the KSL finger spelling app. So it's both as a web app and it's both on Android. As you can see the picture on my slide, that's what I developed, KSL finger spelling. So I have participated in different challenges. The first, I participated in the Google Cloud Developer Challenge in the year 2013. But this needed my technical, it needed Google app, it needed the Google developer. So what I did is I was chosen as a finalist in that challenge. The second one was Africa Android Challenge in 2014. There was welcoming any initiative apps. So what I did is I developed the KSL finger spelling. So I just forwarded that, and they chose it as the best original idea. The third challenge that I joined was for the Oxford Dictionaries. So before I developed the bot that you had seen the demo, and I looked at all these competitions, and I said, this is good for me because I already have the app, but how can I be able to access the data? Like, how does the word mean? So I started researching. So what I did is I said, researching, and then how to match the words with the dictionary and trying to get the data. So that's what had happened, and I was successful because I found that Oxford Dictionary has that for me to use. And then now I have the Sex eLimu app, and I will develop the both later on. So in 2017, last year, so I've never developed a bot before. I always see them during, adverts in the website, and I felt I don't think I can be able to develop that. But 1 month later, I looked at a certain advert and wanted to really, do a bit of research and discover how is that possible. And I knew that since I've developed a KSL finger spelling, why not just try and see how to code this, to code a bot. And in 1 week I was done, and I did that just before the deadline. I presented it, and I was chosen again as a finalist. So I feel, like when I showed you in the demo how you can send a word and then it can bring up the video, which is really good for me. So now for the Sex eLimu, how did I start this? UNFPA and NILAB, the two partnered together, and they started an accelerator program called IAM. So they're looking for SRH solutions that are based with the youth and the community. So my team, we looked at it and felt, how do we solve the challenges for the deaf youth? Because many deaf youth cannot access sexual reproductive health information services. There are a lot of barriers on information because we don't have any words in sign language. And for us, we've never seen this specifically for sexual reproductive health. Maybe there's sign language for different things, but for sexual reproductive health in Kenya, there's nothing. So what we did is we went to NILAB and we gave a presentation, and they were like, you know what, this idea is very good. Many people had presented and were one of the 4 to be the startups that were chosen for the sexual reproductive health. So NILAB, we were there for, which is an accelerator program for startups. We were there for 3 months where they trained us, mentored us, and they gave us free space, working space for those 3 months. So in the trainings, they taught us how we can develop, how to market, how to, identify your users for the back end, the front end. You need to know all that. Also, how to measure, your key metric success. How many deaf, how many hearing people have downloaded, how many users do you have? So what we did is we had basic sign language reproductive health services, because in Kenya, when you look at the words that are available there, sometimes you don't know what that word means. So I decided to use the Oxford Dictionary that has an easier way to explain and then match it with the video of the signs. So that is what I had done in the app, as you saw in the demo. Now I have joined the Oxford Dictionary competition, and I've seen how the Sex eLimu app we've developed and matched it with the API. So that's what I did. I applied that, and they said that this is the best communicator tool. And now what I want to do is to develop the Sex eLimu bot, which is now in the process, and I hope that I'll do so this year. And my focus will be on the back end to develop everything, so that once everything is up and running for Android, the web, and the bot. All three, I want them to be working. They're just focusing on, on one thing. So I also want the data to be ready, and I can focus on those three channels, and which is also in the process. So the 4 things that I wish I knew before I won the grant. The first, the business and revenue model. When I won my first grant, they gave me the money, but, I had the idea as well. I wanted to develop the KSL finger spelling, and I developed it, and it was done. But how to sell it, how to market it, how to register users, I hadn't had a clue on how to do that. So I missed the key on how to know the number of users that I have, how many people are visiting the web. I didn't know how to do all that, the costs. And later, when I did the Android, the app in sign language, when I was in America, I'd seen how people will really benefit financially from their business revenue model. But when I got back to Kenya and I started my Android app, like the registration of users, I found that in Kenya, that they do not accept you to sell the app. I need to give it for free, which made me get stuck. So maybe through the use of adverts, I could earn my money. The second thing I wish I knew was how to get the specific mentor and an investor. When I started the Sex eLimu in NILAB, they had mentors for us. They explained, who is your user? Be specific, who's your target market? How is the app? How many people are using it every day? Really explain everything. How to market. So before I just developed, and I presented the idea and I applied for it, and that's it, or put it in the Play Store. And then people download it. But, now really understanding that you have to have the metrics, it was pretty good for me that I understood that metrics was important. The third thing I wish I knew was the traction for my startup. So initially, I didn't know how to, once you have new users, how do you get the new numbers coming in so that you're not having the same people who are downloaded on day one and also on month and week? How do you grow the percentage, your markup? I missed that information because I hadn't done that earlier, but now I understand how to do that. Like if you have a problem, maybe there's an error, maybe who are your phone users, the Android, is it high-end, is it low-end phones? If they have a problem, what can happen? How do you fix it so that it can work well? So for example, the app that I use, the hearing people, who is more? Is it the hearing people? Is it the deaf people, who my customers really are? So this is key, who my target market is. Before it wasn't like, important. I just applied for the idea for the grant. But right now I understand that my users are for the deaf, but I need to understand also who is it for, since it's also open for both the hearing and the deaf. And then the fourth thing is API. Why? Before I developed the startup, how to develop the Sex eLimu app, it took a long time. An Android phone has an API. It's faster to design and develop, and the time taken is very short. Also, the Oxford Dictionary is ready. So it's not a must for me to really get a book and start copying the words and coding. No, Oxford Dictionaries already have an API that I can just merge with my program. So that's what I wish I knew. And now I want to thank you all for viewing and for listening into my presentation. And also want to thank Silvia, my interpreter, for interpreting. I now welcome any questions that you may have.
I just wanted to say a big thank you to Hudson and to yourself for interpreting. It was a very interesting presentation. It was really fascinating to learn about the journey that took him to develop Sex eLimu and the bot and everything that went behind the scenes in it. So it was really, really interesting. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed presenting. And I hope you, Silvia, enjoyed interpreting for the presentation. And we do have a few questions that we got through the chat. So if Hudson can step back into the camera, I'll start reading the questions. So the first question that we've got here is, was it very difficult to make a translation tool without having access to a bilingual dictionary? And between brackets, the API has a Swahili data set, but not a Kenyan Sign Language one.
Yes, that's true. So the challenge for the translation was there, yes, because I've seen that the English words and the Swahili words, but we don't have a Swahili word to change to English or the English to Swahili. So what I was focusing on was KSL, the Kenyan Sign Language, which we don't have. There's no information on the internet. So that's why we started by the videos of the signs of the words. So we have the words with the sign. So I don't know, maybe in the future, we'll see how we can have Kenyan Sign Language and other sign languages so that it's not only focused on Kenya.
So the next question I've got here is, you kind of covered it in your presentation, so it's more like if you have any other comments to add to this. But the question was, what made you decide to make an app specific to sexual health?
Well, the reason why I did this, focusing on the sexual reproductive health app, is that I've seen in Africa, there is no app or book or materials that's available in sign language. Also, the doctors, the medical care people, the nurse get stuck whenever deaf people come to visit and they want to get information about sexual reproductive health services, about AIDS, HIV, condom, you know, just the basic. So that's what I saw, and I decided that maybe I should just focus on developing that app, which is the first one. Also, in other competitions, whenever they have, and the challenges whenever they ask for initiative, and this was for UNFPA, I decided maybe this could really identify with them, how we can help the deaf, not only the deaf, also the medical practitioners we have in our healthcare system on how to communicate with deaf girls and women. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, how many people are using Sex eLimu?
The app, when I started, it was 2 years ago. So it was a slow process of developing, and right now the downloads are about 1,300 downloads.
All right, that's quite impressive. And my other question is, how did you first begin to promote it? The question doesn't specify, but I imagine it refers to the app once it was ready, not when you are looking for grants. So I imagine it was once you had completed the work on it, how you first started promoting it.
when the initiative, when I participated and I won and I got the grant for the accelerator for the 3-month program, like I'd mentioned in my presentation, NILAB and FPA had partnered and they had a schedule of how we can do the mentorship. And once that was done, what I did is now my app was ready. I put it on Play Store, also in the web, and also I used Facebook as well. So that's how I was able to slowly get it out there. And that's how the number of people who have been downloading, like I'd mentioned. So that's how I just started.
Okay, thank you. And the last question I can see for now is, what was the most difficult aspect of the app to integrate on your code?
It's a good question. I think the most hardest thing is developing the backend. It was quite a challenge. For example, how to write the code to be specific to focus on Android phone, which worked well. Later, then we had a new, for the bot, you know, the language is different. So how to extract the information. For example, the bot has a limited capacity message. You can only do 160 characters. So I couldn't, you know, transfer all of them. It needed to be in, you know, sort of fractions. So this was a real challenge for me on how to do that. So I needed to sort of cut and put them in another one and another and sort of code like that. Also, when the bot was finished, again, I had to come back and change everything. It was very sensitive because, you know, what I did, I had to copy it somewhere differently and change it so that I didn't want to disturb it and maybe have a conflict. So that was the challenge that I faced. So for this year, what I want to do is have one code for all, not just have two separate codes. I want to, like I've explained, you know, copying somewhere separately to, you know, do the changes and then bring it back again. So I want to have one.
Okay, thank you. And there was another question that came in just now, and you more or less started mentioning the plans for this year, but the question is, are there any plans for further development to the app?
Yes, I plan in the future to further develop the app. So like the eLimu, I've said that I need to develop a bot as well. And I think in the future, I plan to develop special learning app that's specific for the deaf people, like for the young and school deaf going children, where both the deaf child and the teacher can learn. So I can develop for the teacher how they can be able to give homework, for the deaf child how they can learn together, so that it will be an equal learning system, because right now that's not the case in our Kenyan context. And as I can tell you, in Africa, there are many materials for the hearing people, but we always miss or sideline the deaf people. We don't have also materials in closed captions. So it's good for me to see how to develop apps that can give opportunity to the deaf, especially in our education system.
Oh, thank you. That sounds really interesting. I might get you to present on that once it's done.
It's okay.
Well, these are all the questions that we've got for now. If you think of any questions that you didn't ask during the webinar and you still want to ask Hudson, please put the questions on the forum, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer the questions there. And for now,
yes,
I just wanted to say again a big thank you to Hudson and Silvia, and to everyone who attended the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed it very much. So thank you, everyone. And from us, for now, goodbye.